رسول الله وعلى نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل يا رب العالمين. Alhamdulillah, we're still on the chapter of Hajj and Umrah. We are now on the sub-chapter of Bab al-Ihram, the chapter of Ihram, under the book of Hajj and Umrah. The author Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi rahimahullah, he says, firstly in this chapter he will talk about two types of people. The one that wants to perform Umrah or Hajj, and the one that actually goes into the state of the intention or the state of Ihram of performing Umrah and Hajj. And the one that wants to perform, there are things that he should do before going into the nusuk, before going into the state of Ihram. And there are things that you have to leave off while you're actually in the state of Ihram, and these are two different states. So he says, rahimahullah, he says, من أراد الإحرام استحب له أن يغتسل ويتنظف ويتطيب ويتجرد عن المخيط في إزار ورداء أبيضين نظيفين ثم يصلي ركعتين ويحرم عقبهما. So he says, rahimahullah, وهو أن ينوي الإحرام. So he says, it is recommended that the one who wants to enter into the state of Ihram perform ghusl, clean himself, applies perfume for males only, and then he should pray 2 rak'ahs, and then enter into the state of Ihram immediately after them by making the intention of Ihram. So these things, these 4 things here are from the Sunnah or Mustahab for a person that has the intention that would like to enter into the state of Ihram, whether you're going for Hajj or Umrah, right? So he should perform ghusl, not only just performing ghusl and making himself, wet, but he should also clean himself. So he should perform ghusl and also, make sure he's cleaned, right? And that also includes shaving the areas that need to be shaved, and making sure that, any filth is off of your body. Also applying perfume. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates to us, and she said that she used to perfume the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam before he went into Ihram. So it is recommended to perfume yourself before going into Ihram, and also before doing tawaf as well. If you're not in the state of Ihram, if it's permissible for you to put the perfume on, of course. Also, take يتجرد عن المخيط, take abstaining from fitted or sewn clothes, and he should wear an izar, a lower garment, or and a rida, a top garment, both which are white. So for Ihram, when we go into the state of Ihram, for the men they wear an izar around themselves on the bottom, and the top cloth or the top towel is called a rida, and both of them should be white if you can find white. If you can't find white, then you can wear a different color, whatever you can find, inshallah. Then he should pray 2 rak'ahs and enter into the state of Ihram immediately after them by making the intention for the state of Ihram. So doing these things are sunnah, right? Doing these things are sunnah. However, there is one thing that is not sunnah, it is wajib, to abstain from things fitted garments or sewn clothing. And what is meant by sewn clothing in the state of Ihram, it doesn't mean clothing that has stitches on it. So some people, they translated lubs al-makhit with clothing that has stitches. It does not necessarily mean that. Every type of garment has stitches. What is meant is clothing which is sewn onto the hay'a or the jism, the shape of the human. So a clothing that has a sleeve, for example, this is prohibited, right? But you can have a towel that is that comes around you, right? Or a towel that you wrap around your waist, that is fine. But to have actual pants which fit into your legs. Those are what is not permitted during the state of Ihram. Now, another thing which is very important to differentiate is that wearing these garments of Ihram does not necessitate that you are in the state of Ihram. These things that we do are things that are not considered this state of Ihram. Ihram is a spiritual is a spiritual status. It is the actual state of Ihram happens when you say the niyyah or the intention of Ihram, labbaik Allahumma Umrah or labbaik Allahumma Hajj, or any of the other phrases that enter yourself into Ihram. And at that time, that state, you are in the state of Ihram. Right? So a person can actually enter the state of Ihram while wearing normal clothing. Of course, he'll be doing an error, something which is incorrect, one of the mahdurat al-ihram, and he will have to, he'll have to pay a fidya or he'll have to fix that, but he's still in the state of Ihram. So the state of Ihram happens when you say the intention, right? When you say the intention, when you say the niyyah to enter in the state of Ihram. As for the garments and all of these things, these are things that you need to have while you're in Ihram, but they don't necessitate that you're actually in Ihram. A person can be wearing the garments of Ihram and he can not be in the state of Ihram. Then he says, rahimahullah, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ أَنْ يَنْطِقَ بِمَا أَحْرَمَ بِهِ وَيَشْتَرِطَ وَيَقُولُ اللَّهُمَّ إِنِّي أُرِيدُ النُّسُكَ الْفُلَانِ فإن حبسني حابس فمحلي حيث حبستني. And he says, rahimahullah, it is recommended that he speaks of his intention for Ihram. So when you're going into the state of Ihram, it is recommended, it is mustahab for you to vocalize your intention for Ihram. So you say, as the author says here, Allahumma inni uridu nusuk, oh Allah, I intend for this particular rite, either Hajj or Umrah, or you can say labbaik Allahumma Umrah, or any of the other alfaz or phrases which have been mentioned in the Sunnah. So it is recommended, it is a Sunnah, right? The actual state of Ihram comes from your intention. So once you intend it in your heart, then you are in the state of Ihram. So if a person, for example, he goes by the miqat and he forgets to say it physically with his tongue, but he has the intention in his heart, right? The whole reason he's going on this trip is to make Umrah. Then he is technically still in the state of Ihram, and he does not have to necessarily go back and make his intention for Ihram, or he does not have to pay a fidya or a fine or do one of the things that you need to one of the fidya for the mahdurat al-ihram, or for not having the intention and crossing the miqat. And he says, rahimahullah, وَيُشْتَرِطْ, and he should make al-ishtirat. Al-ishtirat, or making a condition, is something which the scholars have recommended if you believe that you will not be able to complete your ihram. You will not be able to complete your nusuk, your hajj or your umrah. And if you do the ishtirat, if you say this phrase after your intention, then if for some reason you're not able to complete your umrah or your hajj, right, then you are free from any compensation. So you don't have to slaughter a sheep or a goat, right? In this case, if you don't do the ishtirat, if you don't do make the condition, and if you're not able to continue, then in order to come out of your ihram, you need to make a slaughtering of an animal, and that will be the compensation for that error. So he says, وَيَشْتَرِطْ وَيَقُولُ اللَّهُمَّ إِنِّي أُرِيدُ النُّسُكَ الْفُلَانِ فَإِنْ حَبَسَنِي حَابِسٌ فَمَحِلِّي حَيْثُ حَبِسْتَنِي. Oh Allah, I intend this particular rite, Hajj or Umrah, So if something prevents me from completing it, then the place of the termination of my ihram is where you made me unable to proceed. So a person can say this if he believes that he will not be able to complete his ihram. For example, especially these days, the mashayikh, the scholars, they recommend that you do the ishtirat, because when you go to the haram, sometimes you may not be able to enter. It might be too full, or they might not be allowing people to enter. Or if you're traveling to go, you don't know if you have to book a spot these days in the haram if you want to go and make Umrah or Hajj, or even if you want to pray. These days you have to book a spot prior to going. So you're not sure, you may not be sure if you're going to get a spot. If you're flying from Canada, you're flying from a different country, you may not be sure. So it's best to do the ishtirat, to make the condition, so that if you're not able to get a spot, you don't have to stay in the state of ihram for weeks and weeks, right? You can come out, and then when you're able to, you can make your umrah, inshallah. We'll end off here, inshallah. Tomorrow we'll talk about the different types of hajj and what they comprise of. Sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
What about the perfume after putting ihram?
Sorry?
Perfume after putting ihram.
No, perfume after putting ihram is not allowed. You put the perfume on before you enter ihram. Before. Yeah, before.
And there is no, the salat for umrah.
Yes, we mentioned that you salli rak'atayn, right? You pray 2 rak'ahs for umrah, right? So the majority of the scholars are of the opinion that a person should either he comes into his umrah before a fard prayer, or if there's no fard prayer, then he can pray 2 rak'ahs and he can enter into the status of ihram, inshallah.
And there is no slaughter of animal for the umrah.
No slaughter of the animal unless you make a mistake. Then sometimes there can be a slaughtering. There is a mistake.